afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, May 30th, 2023. This is a call board meeting of the Richland 1 Board of Commissioners. We are at the Stevenson Administration Building at 1616 Richland Street here in Columbia. Pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act, which is FOIA, the public has been provided access to the live stream of this meeting via the district's website, which is www.richland1.org, as well as in person with limited seating. This is a public session. We want to call the meeting to order at this time with the adoption of the agenda. It's the pleasure of the board.
Madam Chair, I move that we call this meeting to order.
Second.
Adopt the agenda, Madam Chair, to be clear.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bishop to adopt the agenda for this afternoon's meeting. It's been properly seconded by Commissioner Devine. We'll now open the floor for question or discussion. Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. We will take the vote manual. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose say nay. The ayes have it. Let the record reflect. All board members are present with the exception of Commissioner Clyburn and Commissioner Myers. At this time, we do have one item listed on the agenda, which is from the Office of Operations, which is our fiscal year 2024 budget update, which is going to be presented on this evening by Mr. Ed Carlin. At this time, Dr. Witherspoon, we will turn it over to the Office of Operations.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. As Mr. Carlin comes up to the podium again, this will be an update of budget information. We've had at least 2 readings here at the district, but as Mr. Carlin has outlined, I'm sure he'll share again. You know, our final budget, 3rd reading, is contingent on certainly the legislature doing their part, and certainly with county council as well. And they have had 2 hearings, two readings rather. And Mr. Carlin will be providing an update as such. Mr. Carlin.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Witherspoon. I'm going to go through a PowerPoint, give you some information. Some of this information you have seen before, but I just want to go over it again. It may be helpful to you all. It's on. What are you doing? Thank you. Am I supposed to put this one? What? What are you talking about? No, it don't work. Okay, just to remind you, priorities for 24, expand the language immersion program, increase pre-K classes, and increase teacher salaries. We looked at this before, although there was one item that changed since we had the work session. The county was at 15 mills. We didn't change the dollar amount, but it was at 15 mills. We had a slight increase from the county, so really it's 9.5 to 10 mills for that amount, which is the amount we requested from the county. So here's the change from the county auditor's office. The original estimate at no mill increase, $251 million. The original estimate at the cap, $265 million. The updated amount basically was in the carryover, and that would put the no mill increase at 254, almost 255 million, and the cap calculation 269 million, 0.5. So we requested from the county on the left side there 261 million, 600,000. Still have 3rd reading of county council. Still need the state budget amounts. We have estimates at this point. At the 2nd reading at the county last Thursday, the county approved $254,990,000. That reduced our request $6.6 million. And you saw this pie chart before, but it's a reminder that 85% of our budget is salaries and fringes. State funding issues and mandates for fiscal year '24. Increase 1% state retirement, that's employer. Increase for health insurance, the other half of last year's increase, 4.5%. Again, that's employer. Paid parental leave, which was, I think, signed by the governor recently, is a mandate there. Bus driver increased 25% of the state driver salary schedule. Again, that's a state mandate. Teacher step increase, state mandate. Increase the teacher salary schedule for all steps, mandate. We have to match that or be higher. Proposed salary increases, teacher salary increased 5%, roughly $6.4 million. Bus driver salary schedule, mandated 25% increase of the state's bus driver salary schedule, $425,000. Non-teacher salary schedule 4%, that's not mandated. But that's what we recommended in our first and second reading. Changes in the expenditure budget, increase in retirement and health, mandated almost $3.8 million. Increased department budgets, $5.6 million. And you have to remember, over the last 3 years, we had somewhere between 5% and 8% inflation, and we did not increase our budgets the last 3 years. So departments are having a tough time right now. We're trying to give them a little help. They really asked for and needed more, but we did reduce that before coming to first reading. Paid parental leave, $786,000. Increased step for the teachers, the increase for the step is $2.8 million. Increase for non-teachers, step, $2.6 million. The increase for the special revenues that we have to move to the general fund, and the funding for this was special revenue. They're now saying they're giving it to us in the general fund, and those are nurses and EEDA specialists, which we feel we need to have. Increase in language immersion and the magnet grants. Again, the grant ran out. We did ask if we could put it in ESSER, and the answer for that is no. Needed additional FTEs, general fund, security for the weapon detectors, 38 FTEs to operate the weapon detectors at the middle schools and other buildings, $1.6 million. Again, language immersion and magnet sustainability, $1.6 million. And then moving the FTEs from special revenue, $1.7 million. So with that, I would take questions. I know there probably will be some questions we need to answer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carlin, for providing that update to the board. We will open the floor now for additional questions from any board member. Commissioner Lomanak.
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. So we need to try to find, if all these numbers hold true, about $6 million, which is about 1.5% of our budget. Is that right?
I didn't figure the percentage, but the 6.6 million is right.
Okay. And I mean, our budget's around 389 million. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a list of all the contracts that we have with folks now that we could look through to see, because we're not going to come up with money by cutting teacher salaries or something like that. It seems like it'd be nice for the board to have a list or a spreadsheet of all of our current contracts to see which ones we want to prioritize and which ones may have to go away next year.
We could probably get a list from purchasing, but I'd have to get with them.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I would say some of those programs are, could be, and that's something that we would look at as an administration as we bring the third reading. But just to note, some of those programs are funded by special revenue as well, so would not necessarily have an impact on the general fund. Some may, but that would be, again, as we normally do going in the third reading, would be bringing certainly a balanced budget to the board, but would consider those things.
Okay. Any additional questions, Lorna? Okay.
No, ma'am.
Any additional questions from board members? Commissioner Bishop?
Dr. Witherspoon and Mr. Ed Carlin has tiered approach of priority level. What do you see will be the most impacted department or operation if this 6.6 is not there for us?
Well, the reason I put that one chart in there was 85% of our budget is salaries and fringes. We may have to consider possibilities, and no matter what we do, people aren't going to be happy, but the facts are you have to have the funds to continue on. You might want to consider the increases. We certainly have to be careful with the teachers because we're required to do some. We could possibly reduce that 0.5%. Otherwise, that's what we need to get them to the level they need to be at. The others, the non-teachers, we could look at that. There would be also the budgets for the departments, and of course, the biggest one would be the operations. Out of the 5.6 million, I think 4.5 million is operations. And they're hit hard because of the inflation for everything that they do. Everything's gone up dramatically over the last 3 years. So that makes it very difficult. We did reduce those, even though we reduced them coming to the first reading. Last year, we reduced them completely back to 22. And the prior year, we had them at 21. So 21, 22 is the same, 23 was the same. And again, we had to come to you to get some additional funds to make it through this year based on, inflation. But that's a place we can look, and we can look at a lot of, there's things we can look at. There's a few items on there. The healthy learners, we're going to look at putting that into ESSER. There was 2 other items. Sierra, do you remember what those items were?
Yeah, for non-certified,
You mentioned.
Yeah, I got that.
as well as
The lower amounts towards the
the
bottom.
JAG FTEs for 86,000.
Yeah, that's something we have with the city and the state.
Our receptionist.
Oh, the receptionists, rather than, bring those on, even though they're needed, it's always going to look back to usually personnel based on the percentage.
And Madam Chair, just one more follow-up. As you do mention personnel, and we always have the conversation about teacher shortage.
Yes.
That does impact the number of teachers we can hire or need to hire, and that ultimately impacts classroom teacher-to-student ratio.
Yes.
Am I
That's right.
spot on with this?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Bishop. Mr. Carlin, quick question, and then I think I already know the answer to this. We're looking at the House budget,
Yes.
and we're expecting that to pass by, is there,
Well, if they go with the Senate version, we'll pick up some.
right?
I don't know exactly how much, but it'll be close to $1 million maybe.
So if the Senate's budget overrides the House budget, we'll pick up an additional $1 million, so I'm not gonna call it a shortfall, because I don't wanna put the wrong words out there.
Yeah.
We'll be at the 5 million mark versus the
5.5.
5.5, okay. But right now, the House version is the one that they're looking at the closest, correct?
I used it because, one, it's the first one out, and you never know what they end up with, and
Right.
you don't want to go too high.
Right,
And if we go with the Senate, we get a little
right,
extra.
right, okay. Okay. Along the lines of what Dr. Bishop just asked in regards to our teachers, and I know our budget is based on a lot of things, Dr. Witherspoon. One of the things we've talked about were tiered classrooms and things of that nature that may become an option, something that we've done before many moons ago, but it was effective. That could possibly help somewhat. I know we've got to look at a lot of things with not knowing. It's a hard thing to really put our finger on where we're going to land because we don't know what's going to happen at the Capitol, and we kind of don't know what's going to happen even with the county. I know we've got to look at a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, we certainly don't want to slight our faculty and staff. I think that it's been a long time since we've been able to do a raise. I think everybody is in the same game and race out here, and that is everybody needs people. And I think the way that you retain good quality people is that you show them that they appreciate it. I don't think that's the area we need to look at, but possibly look at some other areas in our budget. Certainly not going to say that we need to cut programs because I think we do an excellent job in providing opportunities for our students and whatnot. But again, going back to what you're saying about inflation and the cost, we are seeing it firsthand. Our food prices have gone up. Our fuel prices have gone up. A lot of things have gone up. So we've got to look at something somewhere or some things somewhere to pull this budget off for the next year. Dr. Witherspoon, is that something that we can even, I know school year starts in August, look at some of those positions that we have? I know that a lot of our schools were provided with the equipment to do those tiered classrooms. Could that become an option for us if necessary?
Well, if necessary, we've done some of that now.
Right.
But again, as we move forward, there will be some adjustments that have to be made.
Right, absolutely.
And we will do that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. Commissioner Weston?
Yes, my question is, can we look at money that was allocated for building?
If you're talking about the bonds, no, that's capital, can't use it for general fund. If that's what you're referring
I
to.
was referring to the money that we set aside for building.
For the building that we're in the process of building? I don't know.
That's, those are one-time dollars. If you, I don't know if you're referring to the Benford Center or what have you.
Correct.
Those are one-time dollars. What you can't do is use one-time funds for reoccurring and ever-increasing expenses.
Okay.
Are you good, Ms. Weston? Okay. Mr. Lomanak?
But you could use those funds for this budget,
Yeah.
right?
Well, you can use the funds we still have available for one-time use, but you're going to run into a problem with that.
No, I get it, but
Well, I mean, just especially since you're going to have things in ESSER that have to come back out into next year.
Right.
So then you're going to be even further behind if you don't do something else.
well, and that might be why we want to look at the 7% of purchase services and the 7% of supplies. If we've got 1.5% that we've got to find total to get part of the 1.5% out of one and part of the 1.5% out of the other, if we don't do that and we're not willing to take money that we reallocated for building, then we are going to look at staff salaries. I mean, there's not another piece of that pie
Right.
that's going to give us $6 million or whatever it is we ultimately
Right.
need. So, I understand that we would like to have reoccurring dollars being used for reoccurring expenses. But this might be one of the times we need to rethink that, at least for this year.
I want to piggyback on that. If we pull money, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Carlin, but I think I understand the budget process. If we pull money that's one-time money, we run back into the same brick wall next year. And with ESSA ending, a lot of the things that we've been able to put in ESSA would be looking for money as well. So instead of looking for $6 million this year, it could be $12 million next year. So we've now broadened what we would need for next year, because again, it's one-time money.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I'm following this correctly. But then, as you stated before, in the increase in the department's budget, I believe there's a portion of that, you said a good bit of that is operations,
Yes, ma'am.
and that's about 4 million,
It's about 4.5 million.
4.5, okay.
But that includes security and IT.
Everything, right. And security is one of those areas that we needed to increase
Yeah,
because of concerns in our schools.
sure.
Okay.
And SRO's
Right.
contract went up as well.
Right, okay. All right, and then the mandates, which is the parental leave and our steps, and then the increase in retirement puts us at about 6 million, but again, it's mandated but not funded. Partially funded.
It's partially funded.
Okay. All right, Mr. Vaughn, you have a question? Okay. Any additional questions from any board member? Okay. All right. Dr. Witherspoon, Mr. Carlin, do y'all have any closing thoughts before we end?
No, since we get the information, we'll look at it. You know, we need to really have the final numbers from both the county and the state, but if there's any way we can get the extra money from the county right now, that would be great. Even half. If we got 5 mills instead of 9.5 or 10 mills, I mean, that would help us.
Right.
Make it easier for us to handle that.
Okay. Because, and also, because even on the increases that we're talking about for our staff, what the state is mandating in that we bump that up more ourselves because we wanted to give them a little bit more. And then also with the non-teachers, they're not included at all. So that 3.9 is the district giving it to
Yeah.
make sure that
Yes.
everybody gets
Yeah.
a raise.
Yeah.
All
Correct.
right, all right.
But the teachers, you do have a 0.5%. You have
Right.
to do the 4.5
Right,
in order to get
4.5.
everybody up. We're at 5.
Right.
It's a little bit of money, but, you know, it's there.
Helps. Yeah.
But,
Okay.
you know, we'll have to really work through the numbers once we get the final numbers.
Okay, all right. Any additional questions before we close out? Okay, so again, this meeting was not so much as a action meeting,
Right.
more of an update to the board,
Right.
being that county did take their second reading vote, and I know that they'll be finalizing things probably here shortly. We wanted to make sure that the board was kept abreast of what's going on there, as well as what's going on with the General Assembly as it relates to our budget and everything, so that everyone would be on the same page of getting the
Yeah.
information at the
County
same time.
Council's third reading is Tuesday, a week from tonight.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, if there's no further question or discussion from any member of this board, and there's no objection, we can consider ourselves dismissed. Want to thank everyone for coming out for this update. Have a good evening.